What's up, designers, and welcome back to Rempton Games. We're back again with another installment of the Evolution of Pokemon Design series, this time focusing on Generation 6. As always, we'll be looking at the designs of Pokemon in this generation to see their common trends and motifs, and also see how they have changed since previous generations. We'll also be looking at new mechanics, technological improvements, and themes of these games to see how they influence the designs of these Pokemon. Before we jump into that, however, I'd just like to say a big thank you to everyone watching this. With school and work, it can be difficult to find time to work on these videos, but the fact that people like you actually choose to watch the stuff that I make makes it all worth it. This channel is still small, but we are growing and we're almost up to 500 subscribers. We're so close, guys. If you could leave a like on this video, subscribe, or even share these videos with a friend to help us get over this hurdle, I would be so grateful. With that out of the way, let's talk Pokemon design. Let's begin by talking about the new region the players get to explore in these games, the Kalos region. Continuing the trend started last generation of exploring regions based outside of Japan, the Kalos region is based on France. However, unlike the previous generation, it's still possible to find Pokemon from other regions in Kalos, despite the fact that it's based on a country on an entirely different continent. Being based on France does of course present the opportunity for a number of new French-themed Pokemon designs, or simply designs that have a European flair. These include Aegislash, Furfrou, Aromatisse, Slurpuff, and Delphox. Not to get too sidetracked, but for this reason there are a number of Gen 5 Pokemon that I always thought would have made more sense in Generation 6, particularly Carablast, Escavalier, Shelmet, Excelgor, and the Musketeers Terrakion, Cobalion, Virizion, and Keldeo. The former group is themed after European knights and snails, which would be much more thematic for a French-inspired region than a New York-inspired one. And the latter group is literally based on the Three Musketeers, a French novel. Not only would it have made sense thematically, but it also would have helped Gen 6 significantly. Generation 5 introduced the most new Pokemon of any generation with 156. Gen 6, on the other hand, introduces the fewest, with only 72, less than half the number of the previous generation. Gen 6 also only introduces a single family of Bug-type Pokemon, so it could use a few more, and it only has a single trio of legendary Pokemon, while Gen 5 has 3. It just would have evened things out a bit, you know? In addition to being based on France, the Kalos region also has a theme of beauty. The evil team of this region is Team Flare, whose goal is to create a beautiful world by destroying everything that they find to be ugly. Many other characters also play into this theme. Valerie, a gym leader, is also a fashion designer, while Grant is a style icon who set a new trend with his hairstyle, and the champion Diantha is a famous movie star. Aside from various characters being concerned with beauty or having very stylish jobs, this theme also plays into the game mechanically in a few different ways. First, X and Y are the first games in the series where you can customize your player's appearance, giving them new clothes, hairstyles, etc. However, that isn't the only thing you can customize. You can also cut and style the fur of the Pokemon Furfrou into 7 different fancy styles. Given that Kalos is based on a country in Europe, the home of fairy tales, it is perhaps fitting that Generation 6 introduces the Fairy type to the game. The Fairy type is the first new type to be added to the game since Dark and Steel types were introduced in Generation 2 in 1999, and was primarily added to help balance the type chart. Fairy types are immune to Dragon type attacks, which helps add an additional check to the very powerful Dragon type, which was previously only weak to itself and Ice type. In addition, Fairy is weak to Steel and Poison types, which helps increase the usefulness of these types offensively. As this was the first new type in a long time, the Fairy type had a lot of catching up to do. So, in addition to changing the types of over 20 older Pokemon into Fairies, X and Y also introduced 13 new Fairy-type Pokemon, making up over 18% of all the new Pokemon introduced. These include Florges, Dedenne, Carbink, Klefki, Xerneas, and Sylveon. Design-wise, the Fairy type's most obvious visual trait is its association with the color pink. Many of the new fairy-type Pokemon are pink, and many older pink Pokemon had their types changed to become fairies. Aside from this, the fairy type also has associations with the moon, magical creatures including actual folklore fairies, and magic in general. Sylveon specifically also connects with a brand new feature of this generation, the Pokemon-Ami. The Pokemon-Ami allows players to play with, feed, and pet their Pokemon. And the more you interact with your Pokemon, the more it raises a brand new stat, affection. As your Pokemon's affection gets higher, it gets certain bonuses in battle, such as healing from status effects so that its trainer won't get worried, or surviving certain attacks that would normally cause it to faint with 1 HP. This connects with Sylveon because in addition to requiring Eevee to know at least one fairy-type move, Eevee must also reach a high level of affection in order to evolve into a Sylveon. The fairy type isn't the only thing that connects the Kalos region to fairy tales. Continuing on with the trends of the previous few generations, the starter Pokemon of Generation 6 all have a single unifying theme. In this case, they're all based around RPG character archetypes. Chestnut is a knight or warrior, Greninja is a thief or rogue, and Delphox is a wizard or magic user. I mentioned earlier that Pokemon X and Y introduced the Pokemon-Ami and the affection stat. However, these are far from the only mechanical additions to this generation. These games also introduce one of the biggest changes to the combat formula in the entire history of the series, with the addition of Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution is a special ability that certain fully evolved Pokemon can activate when holding a special stone, called a Mega Stone. This ability allows those Pokemon to change into new, more powerful Mega forms. Mega Evolution is, in my opinion, one of the coolest additions to the Pokemon series. While some of the Pokemon that received Mega Evolutions were already quite powerful, such as Metagross and Salamence, many Mega Evolutions were given to Pokemon that were less used, such as Mawile, Kangaskhan, and Altaria, and turned these rarely used Pokemon into competitive powerhouses. Mega Evolution was a cool idea because it was more than just a stat boost. It basically allowed for a complete redesign of the Pokemon, both in gameplay and appearance. Megaforms could rearrange a Pokemon's stats, change their types, and even give them new abilities that completely change the way you use these Pokemon. New Megaforms also allowed for new designs for these Pokemon, something that had never really been possible in the series up until this point. As the name implies, many of these new designs are pretty over the top, taking elements of the Pokemon's original design and really cranking them up to 11. You have a big flower on your back? Even bigger flower. 2 spoons? Now 5 spoons. 1 ponytail mouth? 2 ponytail mouths. Have some spikes, and some Fabio hair. Zippers, more spikes, whatever the heck this thing is. Bing, bang, boom! Mega Evolution design is big, loud, and with very few exceptions, its only goal seems to be to crank the cool factor up to 11. While this does result in some pretty cool designs, some of my favorites include Mega Banette, Diancie, Gengar, especially Shiny, and Altaria, I think many of the Mega designs end up being very cluttered and even tacky. In many ways, Mega Evolution takes many of the design philosophies from Generation 4 and takes them to their logical extreme, producing designs that are so covered in details it can be hard to even tell what's going on, and so exaggerated that they just look ridiculous. Some of the worst offenders of this are Garchomp, Manectric, Medicham, Aerodactyl, Abomasnow, and especially Sharpedo. One of the other interesting things about Mega Pokemon, and possibly even Fairy-type Pokemon, is that they represent a split in the Pokemon timeline. There's a Pokemon world with Mega Evolution, and a Pokemon world without. This generation is one of the first to really expand the concept of the Pokemon multiverse, which is a topic that I'm definitely interested in exploring more in a future video. In contrast to the complicated, bold designs of many of the Mega Pokemon, most of Gen 6's other designs are actually pretty subdued, using simple shapes, textures, and relatively few colors. They also tend to be quite round. While Pokemon has always had rounded designs, it's usually mixed in with several jagged, rough, and sharp outlines as well. Over the past few generations, however, starting in Gen 4, many of these sharper lines are being replaced with softer, rounder shapes. In Gen 6, there are almost no sharp lines in the designs of these Pokemon, and smooth, rounded edges are extremely common. Great examples of this include Fletchling, Go-Goat, Swirlix, Goodra, Amora, and Gourgeist, who all have very simple, rounded designs. This roundness also carries into the eyes. I haven't talked about Pokemon eyes in a few generations because, starting around Generation 3, the variety of different eye styles becomes so diverse that there's almost no clear trends to really latch onto. However, one trend in this generation is a clear preference for simpler, more rounded eye styles that would almost make more sense in an American-style cartoon rather than a traditional anime. Some good examples of this are Quilladin, Bunnelby, Litleo, Helioptile, and Goodra. While there are a handful of sharper, more aggressive-looking designs such as Trevenant, Barbaracle, and Tyrantrum, they are a clear minority in this generation. This generation is the first in the series to make the switch from the DS to the 3DS, and one of the biggest technological shifts in this generation is the move away from 2D sprites to 3D models for every Pokemon. While I can't really say what effect this had on the designs of newer Pokemon, it had a clear effect on the appearance of some older Pokemon. To generalize a bit, many of the colors on the 3D models are much less saturated when compared to those on the 2D sprites. Some good examples of this are Starmie, Charizard, and especially Parasect. Given this, it's possible that the colors of the newer Pokemon are somewhat less vibrant than they would have been in previous generations. One additional, although relatively minor change that was made possible by the 3DS hardware was Inkay's evolution. Inkay evolves at level 30 or above if you hold your DS upside down. This relies on the 3DS's gyroscope and would have been impossible on previous hardware. Finally, let's talk about the legendary Pokemon of this generation. As mentioned before, there's a bit of a shortage of legendary Pokemon this time around. We only get the cover legendary trio of Xerneas, Yveltal, and Zygarde, the fewest legendary Pokemon introduced into any generation. In addition, the actual legends surrounding these Pokemon are a bit lacking. Xerneas represents life and is shaped like an X, while Yveltal represents death and is shaped like a Y. Zygarde is shaped like a Z and is meant to keep order between the two. Pretty basic stuff and very similar to something like Kyogre, Groudon, and Rayquaza. We also only get a handful of mythical Pokemon with Hoopa, Diancie, and Volcanion. Volcanion is unique for being a water and fire type, but is otherwise quite forgettable. Diancie is interesting because it's a mutated form of Carbink, a non-legendary Pokemon. This somewhat connects to the idea that the legendary beasts Raikou, Entei, and Suicune are actually mutated versions of Jolteon, Flareon, and Vaporeon, and it makes you wonder if there are any other legendary Pokemon out there that were originally something else. This is something I would love to see explored with future legendary Pokemon as well. Finally, Hoopa is notable for its ability to create portals and wormholes, which only adds further fuel to the fire of my Pokemon multiverse theory. That's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this topic in the comments below. Are there any important trends that I missed? Do you agree with my analysis, or did I get it wrong? If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to see more, you should definitely check out the previous entries in this series, and I also have a bunch of other videos like my previous one where I look at the combat of the Paper Mario series. I also have over 100 articles on the Rempton Games blog, which you can check out at the link in the description down below. And join me next time for a new entry in my History of Game Design series. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.